Some places attract attention for their food, others for their traditions, some for their unusual sports. But what if I told you that there is a country that combines all of these things and still surprises you in every detail? Have you ever heard of a competition where fighters have to enter the arena with their chests exposed? And it's not for style. It's because one day a woman disguised herself, entered the tournament, and beat all the men. And what do you say to drinking tea with salt or a kind of beer made from fermented mare's milk? Well, today we're taking you to Mongolia, one of the most isolated and fascinating countries on the planet. So get comfortable, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, and don't forget to hype this video, that new YouTube feature that helps content get more views and reach further. That way, we can continue bringing you this kind of incredible content straight from our bello mundo. Number 1. Location and general information. Mongolia is the kind of country we vaguely remember from history class, but few would be able to locate on a map. In fact, even looking at a map, we can't pay attention to it because all the attention is on its neighbors. The country is squeezed between two giants, Russia to the north and China to the south. With no coastline and no major international presence, the territory remains one of the most isolated in the world, and it was precisely this isolation that helped shape what it is today, a land of ancient traditions, powerful nature, and a people who have learned to live on the edge. When it comes to landscape, few places deliver as much. Here, nature steals the show. Endless deserts, snow-capped mountains, crystal-clear lakes, dense forests, and a sky that looks hand-painted. In the south, the protagonist is the Gobi Desert, one of the most extreme on the planet. Temperatures range from scorching to freezing on the same day, and the landscape is almost surreal. Immense dunes, dinosaur fossils, curious rock formations, and the famous two-humped camels. In the north, the scenery changes completely. This is where Lake Kuvshul Nur is located, considered one of the purest in Asia. During the winter, it freezes and turns into a natural ice road. In the summer, it reflects the mountains as if it were a mirror. In this same region live the Tsatan, a nomadic people who raise reindeer in the frozen forests near Siberia. And of course, we can't forget the steppes, those endless green expanses crisscrossed by animal trails and traditional white tents called gers, where nomadic families have lived for centuries. At night, the sky is spectacular. With clean air and zero light pollution, the Milky Way appears with a brightness that is difficult to see in other corners of the planet. The climate is another story. Winters are harsh, with temperatures reaching -40 degrees. Summers are short, dry, and windy. But as grand as the geography is, so is the history of Mongolia. Number 2. History. For many centuries, the vast steppes of Central Asia were home to nomadic tribes, warrior clans, and disputes over territory. Peoples such as the Xiongnu, the Turks, and the Uyghurs were already there well before the 13th century. But everything changed when a boy named Temujin was born. That name may not sound familiar, but he was the man who would change everything. Temujin is none other than Genghis Khan, the leader who, starting in the year 1206, unified the local tribes and began the largest continuous territorial expansion ever seen in human history. Yes, that's right. At its peak, the empire ruled by him and his descendants stretched from the east coast of China to Central Europe and parts of the Middle East. Warriors on horseback crossed plains at unbelievable speeds. They brought their nomadic lifestyle, white tents called gers, and mastery of cavalry to almost half of the known world. Just imagining thousands of horses marching together across the steppes gives you an idea of the scale. After Genghis, other notable names followed, such as his grandson Kublai Khan, who ruled China and founded the Yuan dynasty. But like all empires, this one also came to an end. Internal fragmentation, conflicts between heirs, and external pressures caused the territory to gradually lose strength. Between the 17th and 20th centuries, the region was incorporated into China's Qing Empire. However, this story begins to change when, in 1911, the fall of the Chinese monarchy paved the way for a cry for independence. Liberation, however, was only partial. Real autonomy only came 10 years later, in 1921, with the support of the then Soviet Union. 3 years later, the People's Republic of Mongolia was born, a communist state strongly aligned with Moscow. And so it remained for most of the 20th century, with a single party, a centralized economy, and little openness to the Western world. There is a bizarre curiosity from that time. The first president of the Republic, Bogd Khan, was also an important spiritual figure in Tibetan Buddhism. However, he ruled for only one day. He died shortly after the official proclamation of the new regime, one of the shortest terms in world history. For decades, subsequent leaders followed Soviet guidelines. But in 1990, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, came a peaceful transition to democracy. 2 years later, the new constitution established free elections, a multi-party system, and a market economy. Today, the country finds itself in a curious political situation. It is a democracy sandwiched between two of the world's most authoritarian regimes, Russia on one side and China on the other. This forces the government to constantly juggle geopolitics in order to maintain good relations with both neighbors without giving up its own sovereignty. In fact, due to China's influence, many Western countries only recognized Mongolia as an independent nation in the 80s. Brazil and the United States, for example, only formalized this recognition in 1987. Until then, it was common to see maps and documents that still considered the territory part of China. Surprising, isn't it? From the empire of Genghis Khan to the current Democratic Republic, Mongolia has followed a unique path. And if it once ruled millions of subjects, today it is home to a small and unique population, which we will see below. Number 3. Population, religion, and languages. Mongolia has about 3.5 million inhabitants spread over a territory that is more than twice the size of France. This makes it the independent country with the lowest population density in the world, only 2 people per square kilometer. By comparison, France has 119 inhabitants per square kilometer. In other words, while in France you find a small town on every corner, in Mongolia it is much more common to see miles and miles of steppe without encountering anyone. And here's an interesting fact. Having many children in Mongolia is not just a personal choice. It is officially encouraged by the government. Since the days of the socialist regime, the country has sought to increase its population with policies that value motherhood. Among them is the title Glorious Mother, a national award given to women who raise large families. Women with 4 children receive the second-class medal, and those with 6 or more children receive the first-class honor. The award includes a gold medal, an official certificate, a symbolic cash gift, about $60, and, of course, social respect. The award is presented at formal ceremonies, usually on Children's Day, with a red carpet and the president in attendance. For a country with a small population and a huge territory, every new life matters, and recognizing mothers is a way to encourage population growth and value cultural continuity. Even so, the country is becoming increasingly urban. About 69% of the population lives in cities, and almost half is concentrated in Ulaanbaatar, the capital. It is a chaotic and vibrant metropolis where Soviet-era apartment blocks, modern skyscrapers, Buddhist temples, and street markets coexist. The majority of the population is ethnic Mongolian, especially from the Khalkha group, which represents about 80%. But there are also minorities such as Kazakhs, Buryats, and other Turkic and Siberian groups. Religiously, the country is a mixture of Tibetan Buddhism and ancestral shamanistic practices. Many families, even Buddhists, still make offerings to sacred stones, trees, and mountains. This fusion of faith and nature remains alive, especially outside the big cities. During the communist regime between the decades of 1920 and 1990, religion was harshly repressed and many temples were destroyed. But after redemocratization, there was a true spiritual renaissance. Today, there are hundreds of active monasteries scattered throughout the country, with young people reconciling spirituality with modern urban life. The official language is Mongolian, and since the time of Soviet rule, it has been written with the Cyrillic alphabet. English is becoming more common in schools in the capital, but it is still rare outside urban centers. And here's another interesting fact. In Mongolia, the surname usually comes before the first name and represents the father's name, as a way of keeping the family lineage alive. Even with cell phones and the internet reaching some rural areas, the nomadic lifestyle is still very much alive. Number 4. Nomadic life and ancient customs. Today, about 30% of Mongolia's population still lives as nomads or semi-nomads, a lifestyle that has withstood the test of time and the transformations of the century. These families live in isolated camps scattered across the country's vast plains and mountains. They carry with them traditions that date back to the time of Genghis Khan. The basis of nomadic life is the jier, a circular tent with a wooden frame covered with wool felt, heated by a wood stove in the center. You may also hear this name referred to as a yurt in other regions of Asia. The interesting thing is that these houses are designed to be quickly dismantled and moved. When the pasture dries up or winter arrives, the family gathers their belongings and leaves, taking with them herds of sheep, goats, yaks, camels, and, of course, horses. Speaking of which, in Mongolia, there are more horses than people. It is estimated that there are between 4 and 5 million horses living there, more than the human population. And we are not talking about pampered or domesticated animals in the Western sense. Mongolian horses are rustic, strong, and independent. They survive outdoors in temperatures ranging from -40 degrees in winter to over 30 in summer. They forage for food on their own and brave snowstorms without needing shelter. The nomadic culture is also marked by an impressive sense of hospitality. As neighbors are often miles away, any visit is treated as an important event. Tradition says that if you are traveling through the countryside and see a ger, you can knock on the door or even enter, and you will be welcomed with food, hot tea, and a place to rest. No questions asked, no ceremony. Inside the ger, there are also important rules of etiquette. Do not enter with dirty shoes or touch the doorposts. They are sacred. Always offer or receive things with your right hand, and if you want to show even more respect, support your right elbow with your left hand. Pointing with your finger is rude. Use your palm facing upwards, and never ever extinguish the fire with water. It is a symbol of life and warmth and should be treated with reverence. If you need to extinguish it quickly, the right thing to do is to smother it with sand. Another rule, don't bump into anyone's foot inside the tent. If this happens, custom dictates that you immediately shake hands to apologize and restore the balance of coexistence. These small gestures, which seem like details, reveal a culture deeply connected to nature, solidarity, and peaceful coexistence. Number 5. Traditions. In Mongolia, life revolves around animals, and this starts early. Children as young as 5 or 6 already know how to ride a horse on their own. There is even a traditional saying that sums up the feeling of the people. A Mongolian without a horse is like a bird without wings. Nomadic herds follow an ancient logic. They are the so-called 5 treasures: horses, camels, cows, or yaks, depending on the region, sheep, and goats. Among them, the horse occupies a special place. Having many horses is a sign of wealth, prestige, and tradition. It is no wonder that Mongolian folk music is full of songs dedicated to them. The national instrument is the morn kur, a kind of viola with a horse's head carved into the neck. Its strings are made of horsehair, and it is said that the melancholic sound imitates the trot and even the neighing of horses. But Mongolian tradition is not only about horses. In the far west of the country, there is an impressive custom: hunting with golden eagles. It is a practice maintained by the Kazakh ethnic minority, passed down from generation to generation. Men, and more recently some women, train eagles to hunt foxes and hares in the mountains. The connection between hunter and bird is so strong that it has become a symbol of cultural identity. Every year, the Eagle Festival takes place in Bayan Ulgi, with unusual competitions such as Best Hunting Eagle or Best Eagle at Finding Its Owner from Afar. In fact, this festival became famous worldwide after the documentary The Eagle Huntress, which told the true story of a 13-year-old girl who became the first eagle hunter in her community. It was a cultural milestone and also a great example of empowerment in the steppes. Another moment of national pride is Nadam, a traditional festival held every year in July. Imagine a kind of nomadic Olympics that brings together the so-called 3 sports of the Mongolian man: wrestling, horse racing, and archery. It is a true celebration of national identity, with parades, traditional music, traditional clothing, and, of course, lots of food. In wrestling, called bok, men wear short jackets and fight until one of them falls. And there is a curious detail. These jackets have an open chest precisely because, according to legend, a woman in disguise once defeated several wrestlers. Since then, they decided to leave the torso exposed to avoid further surprises. In the races, the horses are ridden by children between the ages of 6 and 12, considered lighter and more agile. The courses can reach 20 kilometers, crossing open fields at impressive speeds. In archery, men and women compete together, using traditional bows and aiming at targets from long distances. The festival is full of symbolism and reinforces the country's warrior heritage. Many believe that it was Genghis Khan himself who created these competitions as a way to keep his soldiers in shape. Today, it is a national holiday and the highlight of Mongolia's cultural calendar. Number 6. Gastronomy. To end this trip through one of the most unusual countries on the planet, we have to talk about food, right? After all, gastronomy is also culture. And look, Mongolian cuisine is one of those that divides opinion. Some people love it, some people find it strange, but no one is indifferent to it. The basis of the diet there is very simple: meat and milk. Lots of meat of all kinds: sheep, cattle, goat, camel, and even horse. And milk also comes from all possible animals: cows, yaks, camels, and mares. That's right, mares. Vegetables are almost non-existent outside the capital, and it's not because they don't want to. It's just that Mongolia has poor soil, extreme weather, and little good land for planting. And when you're constantly moving with your herd across the steppes, A vegetable garden doesn't really fit with a nomadic lifestyle. The logic behind the Mongolian diet is simple. Provide enough calories and fat to withstand the brutal cold and heavy physical labor. The seasoning is usually just salt. Sometimes an onion is added, but there are no peppers, curry, or strong spices as in other Asian cuisines. Among the most typical dishes is booze, a steamed dumpling stuffed with mutton. It's very similar to a Chinese dumpling, only more rustic. And to accompany it, tea with milk and salt. Sounds strange, right? But in Mongolia, this is sacred. The drink is called Thay and is served in every home, especially when receiving visitors. The taste is different. It's like black tea with milk and a hint of salt. It comes with bortsog, a fried cookie that resembles a mini sugar-free donut, perfect for snacking in the cold. But the greatest symbol of Mongolian liquid culture is oirog, also known as kumis. It is a fermented drink made from mare's milk. They let the milk sour on purpose, ferment it until it becomes slightly alcoholic, about 2 or 3%, like a weak beer, and serve it in communal bowls. It is slightly effervescent with a sour taste, somewhat similar to carbonated sour yogurt. Strange? Quite. But it is a source of national pride. In fact, refusing a bowl of airag can even be interpreted as rude, and Mongolians take it seriously. They drink liters of it, especially at parties and ceremonies. They say it's good for digestion, circulation, and even for giving you energy in the cold. Deep down, Mongolian cuisine reflects the country's history, resistance, rusticity, and survival. And if you enjoyed this dive into Mongolia's unique culture, don't forget to support the channel. Subscribe, turn on the bell, leave a like, and comment on what surprised you the most. Would you be willing to try tea with salt or fermented mare's milk? Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.